My name is Storm. I'm an alcoholic. Storm is my real name. I didn't expect this large of a crowd. I'm a little nervous. Storm is kind of a weird name. I used to say, that if it was a nickname, I would have changed it a long time ago. But I was sitting in the meeting here one day, and there's a lady that frequents Reading. She's from out of town, but she comes very regularly. And I introduced myself as Storm. That's my nickname. I would have changed it a long time ago. And I was sitting next to a lady who goes by the nickname of Stormy. And I felt about this big, I was like, anyway. I had never met another adult named Storm or Stormy in my entire life until about a month ago. The place I work hired a lady whose real name is Stormy. So now the joke is when we're in the same room, it's the perfect storm. I like to use a lot of humor when I talk because that's what was attractive to me when I was new. I'd like to welcome Kyle. If you stick around, we will ruin your drinking for you. The good news and the bad news is that we're probably your new best friends. Okay? I'd like to welcome all the people that identified as being in their first 30 days again. I hope you hear something that keeps you coming back. And for those people that heard me share here early last summer, I want to tell you, I went back in time and I changed my story. So I have a whole different story now because, anyway, you don't have to worry about that. I will qualify briefly. I don't believe in log. When somebody starts into a long drunkalogue, I get bored after about 3 minutes. So, but I do think it's important to qualify in that regards because when I was new, I didn't relate to recovery issues. I didn't relate to spirituality. I didn't relate to the steps or the book or any of that stuff. I related to the fact that these people had drank and used the way I drank and used, and now they didn't anymore. All right, the book talks about meeting people with whom the problem has been solved. You can't argue with that. Okay, you can't argue with that. So I come by my disease naturally. Alcoholism runs in my family. My grandfather, my father, my brother, my cousin, they all died of alcoholism. I was raised by hippies. Drugs are a part of my problem, a part of my story. I don't apologize for that. I think it's important that we stay focused on our problems as they relate to alcoholism, because that's what we have in common. That's the lowest common denominator in this room at this time. There are all sorts of other addictions that people in recovery or people not in recovery can fall prey to. Okay? I was addicted to the hokey pokey, but I turned myself around. Yeah. Lame. Some of these are kind of corny, I have to admit. But I did have an experience recently that I want to share. I am also in recovery from compulsive gambling. And that's what really kicked my ass about 2 years ago. I tried to become a professional poker player. It did not end well. It ended really bad. So the other day, I checked my smartphone, and it said, those applications that tell you how many days you have clean and sober. It said I had 777 days without gambling. And my mind says, oh, that's got to be a lucky day. I should go to the casino. Anyway. So I drank and I used a lot. My mom gave me LSD when I was 11. We used to do it for spiritual purposes like Christmas and Easter and summer solstice and stuff like that. It was the 60s. You kind of had to be there. It was very pure stuff. It wasn't a street drug. They were using LSD as a chemically induced spiritual experience. And it had some value as that, but the problem is, when it wore off, I was the same asshole that originally took it. There was no lasting effects. Okay? The spiritual awakening and the 12 steps of recovery has a lasting effect. It's a transformative at my core. So in some ways, it was like I went to a party when I was 13 and I did a whole lot of drugs and alcohol, and things got really fuzzy around the edges. And when they got clear again, I was 33 years old. That's about what happened, okay? And I had a huge problem with meth and alcohol. And I weighed about 145 pounds, and my cheeks were all sunken in. My eyes were permanently bloodshot. And I want to tell you, see, I hit a bottom in the early 80s, and I got into recovery. I had quite a few years, a long time ago, but I let the good life that AA gave me convince me I didn't need AA in my life. And we were talking at the 11th step meeting this morning about, the world started to revolve around me again, and I forgot that I thought I was okay because I wasn't drinking, and I quit going to meetings for 17 years. So I have a little over 2 years clean and sober again, and I'm really glad about that. But I want to tell you what I learned from hitting that first bottom and the things that changed my life. Okay, so the kind of person I was very, very focused on the drugs and the alcohol all the time. If I wasn't drinking, I was thinking about drinking. The kind of person I was would be like, they would invite me to a party and they say, Storm, we're going to have a party, we're going to have a band and an open bar. And I'd be like, open bar? Oh my God, And I'd be drunk after about 3 hours, and I'd be throwing up in their toilet, and they'd kick me out, and I never got invited back to that party again. That's the kind of alcoholic I was. I could not stay stopped. I'd get off work, and I'd have 2 beers on the way home, and every day I would tell myself, I'm only going to have those 2 beers. I'm not going to get totally wasted, because I got in trouble the other day. And every time I would get those 2 beers in me, and alcohol is a mind-altering drug. It would change my mind. I would want to do a whole lot more, and I would always do a whole lot more. I have some notes here in case I get lost. Behind every active addiction, every negative compulsion, every destructive obsession is the delusional, defective thinking that this time the negative consequences won't occur. This time I will control and enjoy my drinking. This time I won't spend my whole paycheck. And it's a delusion. It's the great obsession of every abnormal drinker is that they will someday control and enjoy their drinking. Many pursue that into the gates of insanity or death. It was very difficult for me to come back to AA. I had been exposed to AA as a child. My dad had 20 years in North Sac. So I knew that if I went to AA, they were going to tell me I had to quit drinking forever. And I couldn't get my mind around that. How could that possibly be the solution for me? Okay? And so, I would get almost to that point, and then I would revert, and I would go back and think, well, this time it'll be different. This time I'll be more careful. If I could have been more careful, I would have been more careful. I couldn't be more careful. So I got into recovery in the early 80s. I was ordered to go into recovery from my job. I didn't want to come into AA. I wanted to save my job. I had this high-paid government position as an electronic technician, and they were about to fire me. And I acquired an honest desire to quit drinking from hearing the stories in the room, from hearing people talk about drinking the way I had been drinking, and now they didn't anymore. And not only that, see, I didn't know anybody that had successfully quit drinking. There wasn't a single person in my life that didn't use something. You know what I'm saying? Something. Okay? And, to me, the drugs were the cocaine, the heroin, and the meth. Alcohol and marijuana and codeine, and those weren't drugs. Those are just what people did. Everybody did that stuff. That was my world. I acquired an honest desire to quit drinking, and I managed about a week. And then I found myself with a beer in my hand. Like the book says, pounding on the bar. How did that happen? I really, really wanted to stay sober, and I couldn't. And I started to realize that maybe this thing was a little bit more than just willpower. And I checked into a sober living environment, and they told me it was up in Auburn, and the program was to go to a lot of meetings. And they told me some really profound, really basic things. The message in Alcoholics Anonymous is that we don't tell each other what we should do in here. All right? I had a lot of people at that point in my life telling me what I should do. You should quit drinking. You should quit smoking pot, you should, you know. And I was always able to turn that around and say, no, you don't understand. Alcohol's not my problem, you're my problem. You know, alcohol is my solution. You know, and for a long time it was, and then it turned on me. It became more of a problem than a solution. So I got to this recovery home, and they weren't telling me what I should do. They were telling me what they had done. And that's a big difference in that kind of message. We don't should on each other here. We tell each other what we have done. And you're free to resonate with that. They said some very simple things that I related to quite a bit. They said, one of the first things that I remember hearing at that recovery home is they told me that you don't have to live that way anymore. Now, I hadn't told anybody how I was living. They took one look at me and they knew, okay? It was not a good scene. You know, a bottom, I had hit a bottom. And a bottom is when the negative consequences of your behavior are coming at you faster than you can lower your standards to admit that you did that shit. And, you know, I think that, I mean, look around this room, okay? This room is full. I'm impressed, okay? But everybody in this room hit what I call step zero at some point in their drinking career. Step zero is this shit has to stop, okay? The negative consequences outweigh whatever perceived gain or advantage, you know, that comes from the drinking. You know, I drank when I didn't want to drink. Okay, I'm an alcoholic. I drank after I got drunk. Okay, I'm an alcoholic. All right. I have the alcoholic thinking. The world revolves around me. Okay, it's all about me, and I had to get out of myself to get into recovery. How many alcoholics does it take to change a light bulb? Just one, but he doesn't screw it in. He just holds it up and lets the world revolve around him. Because he knows the world's going to revolve around him. Again, a very corny joke, but still, you know, you got to chuckle. So they told me some simple things. They told me, utilize this program, don't analyze it. I told them that I would have to think about that one for a little while. They told me that my best thinking got me here, and I related to that right away. Because my best thinking, my life was in shambles, and it was my best thinking had been applied to my life, and it ended up in shambles. They told me what the definition of yet was, because I heard a lot of things about people that I have never gotten a DUI, I've never gone to jail, I lost marriages, I lost jobs, I lost respect. But they explained that the definition of yet is you're eligible to. You're eligible to. And that's for all those yets out there, I'm eligible too, okay? The disease is progressive, but recovery is progressive too. I want to share something I saw on Facebook. I think I have an addiction to Facebook. I check it all the time. You know, I have a life outside of Facebook, but I've forgotten what the password is to it. So this thing came across Facebook. It said, I started drinking because I wanted to. And then pretty soon, after a while, you know, because I'm alcoholic, it became a habit. And then towards the end of my drinking, it was a necessity. I had to have it. I couldn't go through a Friday night without drinking. I couldn't go through a Saturday night without drinking. Absolutely could not do it. I came into recovery out of necessity. I had no place else to go. It was the last house on the block. All right? I had to come into recovery. The consequences of not were too severe. I stuck around in recovery, and it became a habit. And I'm in recovery up here today to tell you that I want to be here with you guys. Okay? You guys are family. I have a definition of family. A lot of you are family. You know? Somebody said something about, you know, I love everybody in AA. I don't like them all, but I love them. And, you know, a family member to me today is somebody that when they ask me, how are you doing, Storm, they actually want to know the truth. I don't, you know, if people at work say, how you doing, Storm, they want me to say, I'm fine, how are you doing? And if I were to tell them the truth, they'd be like, TMI, TMI. But most of you guys, and quite a few of you I know really well, if you ask me how I'm doing and I were to share with you, I'm having a really good day or I'm having a not so good a day or things, you would care to listen. And that's what family is for me today. Okay, so we come in here and we tell each other what we have done, not what we should do. We don't talk about politics or religions or things that are divisive. We talk about things that are unifying. We talk about the problem and the solution. The solution is in the book. It's in the steps. So they told me I don't have to live that way anymore. I had absolutely no defense against the first drink. That was the problem. I would pick up, the insanity, the unmanageability in my life was not the crazy, stupid, depraved, sick, illegal things I did under the influence or trying to get under the influence. The insanity and the unmanageability in my life was the fact that knowing that all hell was going to break loose, I would pick up that first drink anyway. Over and over again. I had no defense against that first drink. Well, today I do. All right? I could not bring into my mind the shame and humiliation of even a few days ago to prevent me from picking up that first drink. And today I can. Today I do. Today, if that thought of a drink comes along, one of our slogans is think, think, think. I didn't understand that at first. But they told me, and this is one of the tools for the newcomer, one of the most powerful tools that I picked up and was shown to me and told me to use when I was new to prevent me from going backwards was to think it clear through. All right, to think about not just taking the drink, but what's really going to happen. Not what my mind first tells me. All right, my mind lies to me about the effects of drugs and alcohol. To this day, my mind will tell me that, maybe it wasn't so bad. Okay, stuff like that. But to think about what's really going to happen, to get to that reality-based thinking about drugs and alcohol, that's what I have to do to stay clean and sober. And it takes an effort to stay in recovery. It doesn't just happen. I have things I have to stay in the middle of the herd. For me, the middle of the herd is going to a lot of meetings, having a sponsor. I have a sponsor. But I also have a half a dozen men in this program who have what I want. And I have called them at different times for different reasons, for different occasions, or just to say, hey, you want to get together for lunch or coffee? Okay? And I think it's real important to stay in the middle of the herd, because if you're in the middle of the herd, you don't get picked off by the predators. That's the concept there. And they also told me to stick around and watch the passing parade. And unfortunately, that has been the case. This program works for anybody who can and will completely give themselves to this simple program. It doesn't work for people who take it back. The other day, I called somebody because I was having this feeling like, I didn't want to drink or use, but I didn't necessarily want to be in recovery anymore either. All you guys were... I can't have to put this bluntly. You were all assholes. and I know what happens. I know the process. If I meet one asshole, it's a possibility that they're an asshole. If I meet two, it's a possibility, maybe. If I meet three or more, it's my problem. It's me. I'm looking at the world with asshole-colored glasses. So I had to call somebody. I had to tell him, what was going on. I didn't have to. I deserve that kind of support. I was able to use the tools, all right, because it takes an effort to stay in recovery. If I use the tools that I've been shown really work, they work. And they work it's like my life was going along like this. I had all these ups and downs, and I finally hit a bottom. And now I've climbed back up, and I'm higher than where I started. It's a life beyond our imagination, rocketed into the fourth friggin' dimension, It really does happen. So I called this person and shared with them what I was feeling about my day and my perception of everyone. And he was like, that happens to all of us at some point. We just... it takes an effort to put principles before personalities in here. It really does. And what he was explained is that if I've really settled the first step, then I have a momentum going in that direction. You know, I'm going to keep things moving forward, and eventually you all turn into nice, loving people again. You know, in a couple of days. So, you know, today, you know, I have been shown through the steps the process of looking at my part in everything. I have a couple things in mind. Yeah, I think it's real important to have fun in recovery. Winterfest is coming at the end of this month. It's going to be a good time had by all. The Saturday night meeting at Winterfest will be somewhere between 600 and 800 sober alcoholics in the same room at the same time. And you know, nobody's going to call the police, okay? Look around the room and think about all the wreckage of our present that didn't happen while we sat here for an hour and helped each other stay sober. All right, all the broken heartaches and all the disappointed children and everything that didn't occur because we help each other. The therapeutic value of one alcoholic helping another is without parallel. The therapy that happens when we sit down and we heal each other, it's healing, and it's a healing in a manner that doesn't have anything else that even goes that direction. You can't go to a psychiatrist and get what we have in here. You can't go to a minister or a priest and get what we have in here. Okay? They have things to offer us. Okay? But what we have in here is unique. It's special. Somebody once mentioned recently that they have unique and priceless friendships in the program of AA. And I really like that phrase. I told them I'm going to steal that one. Every good alcoholic hurts a lot of people. The people in my life that love me are free to love me today and not be in pain over that love because I'm not in active addiction, active alcoholism. And, you know, I have a lot more people that do love me. We're saving a seat here. I have an adult daughter. She called me some months back and said, I think I have a problem with vodka. You're right. Not alcohol, just vodka. You know. So I went to a couple of Al-Anon meetings. How many Al-Anons does it take to screw in a light bulb? None. They detach with love and let it screw itself. All right, one last light bulb joke. How many addiction counselors does it take to screw in a light bulb? Just one, but the light bulb has to want to change. All right. So, you know, I think it's real important to have fun in recovery. When I got to my first meeting in Carmichael near Sacramento, it was a young people's meeting. They were laughing. I hadn't laughed in a very long time. Okay? They were planning picnics and campouts and conventions and parties, and they said, Storm, come with us. We're going out to Denny's after the meeting. I went out to Denny's with those people for quite a long time. We got kicked out of Denny's for being too rowdy. Sober. You know? It was like a badge of honor. And so Winterfest is coming. A good time will be had by all. It's the last weekend of this month. You know, the conventions and the campouts and you know, I don't know how to explain it. We're not a glum lot. That's what the book says. You know, we insist on enjoying our life. All right, we absolutely insist on it. I know for personal fact that if I stay grumpy for very long, and grumpy is restless, irritable, and discontent. If I stay grumpy for very long, I will have to do something to change that, because I just, you know, I can't stand being grumpy. I can't stand myself when I get that way. So the steps have transformed me into somebody who seeks a different kind of solution, whereas before, drugs and alcohol was always my first choice to fix that. And today, I have other tools in mind, and I have in mind something to do something that's really very different. And I'm gonna take a little risk here. I have the version of how it works that was originally written by Bill. All right. Now he sent this out, and there's an issue of the Grapevine that talks about the original manuscript. And he sent it out, and it came back with a bunch of suggestions. So if you bear with me, I'd like to read how it works, the original version that Bill wrote. And I invite you to, we hear this at every meeting, but the words are really powerful, okay? I invite you to close your eyes and pretend you're hearing this for the first time. And when we get to the part where it says God could and would and thought, don't say that with me, because that's not what Bill wrote originally. And there's a line after that that I think is really interesting. So it goes like this. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our directions. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are not at fault. There are such unfortunates. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a way of life which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any lengths to get it, then you are ready to follow directions. At some of these, you may balk. You may think you can find an easier, softer way. We doubt if you can. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that you are dealing with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for you. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. You must find him now. Half measures will avail you nothing. You stand at the turning point. Throw yourself under his protection and care with complete abandon. Half measures, I lost my place. Okay, now we think that you can take it. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as your program of recovery. Admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care and direction of God as we understood him. 4, made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, were entirely willing that God remove all these defects of character. 7, humbly, on our knees, asked him to remove our shortcomings, holding nothing back. 8, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make complete amends to them all. 9, made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our contact with God. praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual experience as the result of this course of action, we try to carry this message to others, especially alcoholics, and to practice these principles in all our affairs. You may exclaim, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after have been designed to sell you 3 pertinent ideas. A, that you are alcoholic and cannot manage your own life. B, that probably no human power can relieve your alcoholism. And C, that God can and will. If you are not convinced on these vital issues, you ought to reread the book to this point or else throw it away. That last sentence was not included in the big book. It was, but he wrote it. He wrote that in the original manuscript. It's in there, but they edited it out. So I hope you got something out of that. I was a little nervous about doing that. It seemed like kind of a risk, but I felt that it's important to know. It was very revealing for me to read some of that. And a little time I have left. Step 1 wasn't that hard for me because my life was a mess. It was a real mess. Nothing was working. None of my relationships. An addiction in the language of the mental health and alcoholism, if there's a clinically significant impairment in social, occupational, or relationship functioning, then alcoholism is present. And it certainly was in my degree. So I'm not powerless over stovetops. If I touch a stovetop and I get burnt, I will spend the rest of my life checking out stovetops before I touch them again. One time is all it takes. The negative consequences of that behavior change my behavior. I got burnt by the drugs and the alcohol over and over and over again. I could not change my behavior. I was powerless over alcohol. It had power over me. Step 2, I did more of a kind of a hindsight. When I look back on my early recovery, something changed in me. I was restored to sanity. My thinking when it comes to alcohol is now, it's like I react as if it was poison, which it is for me. If I had an allergy to strawberries, I wouldn't go down to hang out in the strawberry aisle of the supermarket, you know. Step 3 was difficult for me because I got here as an atheist. I didn't want to hear about God. I didn't want to know about your God. And thank God that nobody in AA ever told me what I had to believe about God. If they had, I would have run the other way and never come back. You know, nobody in all those meetings I went to, nobody even took me aside and said, "We want you to come to our church because we want you to be converted the way we believe." And it's like, no, you know, we don't do that in here. It's God as I understand Him. I heard something that really resonated with me the other day. My view of God, my belief about God, God is more of an energy than an entity. And that's what works for me. Steps 4 through 9 were difficult, but they're crucial in that transformative process by which I become a different person. If all you do is take the drugs and alcohol out of Storm, he will drink again because I always did before. I had to change Storm. And the steps are transformative in that process. The steps are designed to get me out of the victim role and get me thinking about other people instead of just me. Step 10, we take care of the wreckage of our present. there's only a handful of places in the big book where it says if you do A, B, and C, you will drink again. And one of those places relates to step 10, but it's in the chapter to be agnostic. Actually, no, it's in page 70. Suppose we fall short of the chosen ideal and stumble. Does this mean we're going to get drunk? Some people tell us so, but this is only a half-truth. It depends on our motives. If we are sorry for what we have done and have an honest desire to let God take us to do better things, we believe we'll be forgiven and learn our lessons. Here's what I wanted to share. If we are not sorry and our conduct continues to harm others, we are quite sure to drink. We are not theory. This is not a theory. These are the facts. These are our experience. So step 10 is taking care of the wreckage of my present. I just came from the 11th step meditation meeting. Meets on Sunday morning at 8 o'clock. It's a great meeting. The topic is always step 11, and there's 20 minutes of silent meditation in the meeting. And it's helped me a lot with step 11. But, I got to share, if step 11, if they had said anything other than praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out, I couldn't do it. Because, for me, prayer was always like, that Janis Joplin song, Lord, won't you buy me a Mercedes-Benz? That was prayer. So I had to look at prayer from a new light, and meditation was, sitting around cross-legged with incense and candles going, Om. So I redefined prayer and meditation in ways that work for me to help me stay sober and help me improve a conscious contact. I lived in Hawaii. We went to meetings outdoors, and it occurred to me that those meetings were extra powerful because there's 3 acronyms for God that I appreciate. I was getting good orderly directions from a group of drunks in the great outdoors, and that was really powerful. So, step 12 is where it really comes together, and I get out of myself and start thinking about other people. We try to carry this message to other alcoholics. What is the message that we try to carry? Well, I think one of the simplest ways to get it across to newcomers is that what they told me: you don't have to live that way anymore. Okay, you don't have to drink even if you want to drink. There is a better way, and it's possible to watch a Super Bowl without a six-pack. It's possible and fun to go fishing without getting totally wasted. I didn't know how to do that. You guys taught me how to do that. The fellowship of AA. So that's a little bit about me. The kind of person I was if my car broke down on the freeway, I had to call suicide prevention. The kind of person I was doing suicide on the installment plan. Okay? What happened is Alcoholics Anonymous intervened in my life. Alcoholics Anonymous took me and turned me in a new direction. All right. Now I have my part. I have to be willing to show up and suit up and do the things here that are required. And what it's like for me today is that I get to do things like this. I get to stand here and look at you guys and feel that conscious contact with my higher power that comes when we are together like this, devoted to a cause like this. I mean, there's no other organization in the world like Alcoholics Anonymous. We don't have any leaders. We don't have any rules. Nobody can get kicked out. Nobody can be kept out. It's amazing that it actually works for millions of people all over the world. And, this is a big holiday weekend. And, I woke up on New Year's Day without that pounding, throbbing, thirst-quenching headache thing, that comes from getting so drunk you don't know where you're doing. And I think I'd like to close, by saying that, I can't have any problems that I can't make worse by drinking or using over them. That's what I've been taught in Alcoholics Anonymous. When the shit hits the fan, there are people, I have people in my life, I have made priceless and unique friendships here. And, if something were to go really, really wrong in my life, say someone really close to me dies, and I've seen this recently in our fellowship, people have died, and the people that were close to them were taken care of by the fellowship. All right? So when they said, the other thing they told me when I first got here that I did not understand at all was they said, let us love you until you can learn to love yourself. And that has occurred. That has happened. Thank you very much.